So we're going to start with the potatoes. When you cook potatoes, you always want to start with cold water, cold potatoes, so that the potatoes cook evenly. If you start cooking the potatoes with already hot water, you can get an uneven cook. Another little trick is that if you're busy and you want to kind of get some prep done before kids are awake, before any, just the night before, you can cut potatoes a few days in advance, up to a week, as long as you put some salt water, cold water, and they're covered completely by water. Your potatoes will last for about a week. And this is just a really easy way to kind of just get a head start on some dinner. So I'm going to go ahead and drain out these potatoes. And as you see, they're all pretty much the same size. That way they cook evenly. So we're going to go ahead and put those potatoes in there. And then I got 2 cloves of garlic. Just cut them up into some small pieces, nothing too crazy, a little rough chop. And no salt, no anything. We're going to cover that and we're going to put it on medium heat. And then we're going to go work on our dressing for our salad. Okay, so here's our salad. We have what is called in the culinary world a mise en place, which means everything in its place. You always want to remember to make sure you have everything organized, because then everything flows great. Your food is cooked perfectly. You're not trying to reach for one or the other ingredient. So for our salad, we're going to have a spinach salad. That's going to be our green base. You don't have spinach, mixed greens, anything that you can get a hold of that is a green. We're gonna top our salad with some raw julienne beets and some slivers of almond, some tangerine supremes, which I'll teach you right now how to make those, which is just the flesh, and some really thin cut pieces of celery, which give a beautiful texture to the salad. We're also going to cut a green apple into the salad, but that's going to go last because apples tend to turn brown from the oxidation because of oxygen. And this really delicious, very pungent, sweet, creamy goat cheese that is actually encased in some delicious sweet blueberries. And then our vinaigrette, we're going to use red wine vinegar. You can use olive oil, grapeseed oil. I'm going to use avocado oil because I love the flavor of it and it's really healthy. We're going to use some of the juice from the mandarins. And then we're going to use a lemon juice, as well as some onion powder, some black pepper, some dried parsley, and I actually like to get my garlic, and actually instead of cutting it, I like to grate it. It really brings out the flavor of the garlic, and it's easier to mix into the actual dressing. So we're gonna go ahead and actually, you know what? I need my salt. Where's my salt? There it is. So I use pink salt, but you can use whatever kosher, any kind of salt that you want. And so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add our juice from our little cutie here. A lemon. It's gonna go really nice. If you're feeling a little experimental or you want it a little more freshness, you can zest some of that lemon. It'll go great in the dressing. We're gonna add about a tablespoon of red wine vinegar, and then to balance the sweetness, I'm gonna use some maple syrup. It's kind of on the more golden color. There's different grades of maple syrup. If you don't have maple syrup, you can use honey, you can use agave, something that's sweet. And I'm going to use about a half a tablespoon, and you can taste later and see if you want it sweeter or not. And then we're going to start mixing. And you want to mix as you throw in the avocado oil so you can emulsify this. You want to throw it in little by little so that it can come together. And maybe a little bit more. And we'll leave it at that. And we'll set that to the side. And we'll come back to our salad when it's time to eat. Okay, so quickly, just supreme basically means like the best cut. And so and it's a little difficult with a little cutie like this versus like a bigger orange or a lemon or lime. Basically, we're going to cut off the ends so that you have a stable product to work with. And you're going to shave off the skin of the cutie. And you're basically going to go all the way around. And I squeeze out so that I'm not wasting anything, because the name of the game at this current situation is not wasting any food, because there's many that don't have it. So we got to make sure we are not wasteful. And so you want to take off all the skin. Again, this is, a little bit more complicated because it is so tiny. So it's really delicate. So you want to go in between the skin. Let me just get this little piece off. You want to get in between the skin of each slice of orange so that you go all the way in, and then you go to the other side so that you're only getting the flesh of the cutie. It comes out like that. We'll toss that in there and we'll put that on the top of our salad. So I'll finish doing this and we're going to start with our chicken. Okay, so we're making some buttermilk fried chicken, one of my favorites. Now, let's say you don't have buttermilk because of, well, our current situation. You can make your own buttermilk. If you have regular milk, just put a tablespoon of white distilled vinegar in a measuring cup, and then fill the rest up to a cup of milk, and mix it really well and let it sit there for about 5 minutes, and that will make your own buttermilk. Now let's say you don't have milk and you don't have vinegar, you can use coconut milk, coconut cream. It won't come out exactly the same way, but it will still be delicious. So that's a little trick for making your own buttermilk. Now, if you're a vegetarian, you can use coconut milk or cashew milk and do all the same spices, and instead of chicken you can use a portobello mushroom, it comes out really delicious. And so we used for our marinade, to marinate our buttermilk, is paprika, some onion powder, black pepper, some Creole seasoning with no salt that we got in New Orleans, which is really good. I bought tons of parsley and dried it out myself. First I left it out for at least a day out, just room temperature, and then when it dried out completely, I put it in the oven for like 10 minutes at the lowest setting, and I added some granulated powder. That mix right there makes food taste delicious. 2 cloves grated, again, because it gives it such a beautiful flavor. And then I personally cook with either kosher salt, but this is pink sea salt. And so I'll mix all of that in there. So I use about 2 teaspoons of paprika, about a tablespoon of onion powder, 2 teaspoons of black pepper, a tablespoon of the Creole seasoning, a teaspoon of this parsley garlic, and 2 cloves grated in there, and about 2 teaspoons of the salt. Ideally, I like to leave my chicken in this mixture for overnight, but it's been marinated for about 6 hours or so, so it'll still come out good. But I do like the drench for a long time. For vegetarians, if you're using a portobello mushroom, if you're going to go that route, do not leave it overnight, maybe like 30 minutes at the most, because mushrooms already retain a lot of water, so you don't want a mushy mushroom. And then we're going to go ahead and do just regular flour, but if you only have wheat flour, if you don't have flour at all, that's fine. You can skip this step. We have some eggs. For vegans, if you guys want to make this, you can actually soak some flaxseed, and it will become the same consistent as egg, as your coating, your binder. Then we have some panko crust. I like the panko crust because it gives it an extra crunch. But if you don't have panko crust, regular breadcrumbs is fine. Yeah, so there we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to dip each breast in flour, then into our eggs, back to our flour, into the eggs, then onto our coat it with the panko, and then we're gonna let them rest here until we're finished with all the chicken breast. Now, doing the double drench, what's gonna happen is just gonna make it extra crunchier, and it's just delicious. I don't know, that crunch just makes it says fried chicken. So we're gonna go ahead and do one. I can hear our potatoes boiling over there. Kind of let the excess buttermilk come off of it, and then just place it in the flour and make sure it's really coated in there. This can get a little messy, don't worry. This is why this is the only thing that's on this counter, so we don't cross-contaminate anything. Just make sure it's on there. Make sure it's completely covered. Same thing, dust the excess, put it in the egg. These are kind of big chicken breasts, so our plates are not as big as these chicken breasts. And then coat it, let the extra run off. I have a friend named Denise. Her children love when I make the fried chicken. I made it for them once and they really, really liked it. When cooking, thinking about people you care about and love and having really good energy in your heart really does make your food come out tastier. So again, this is our second go, and we're going to put it in the egg. Oops, let me get it. Let's throw some egg in there, make sure it's nice and coated, and then let the excess come off and throw it in the breadcrumbs. Cover it completely, make sure it's in there. Again, this is messy, I don't have big plates. These are actually pretty big breasts. This is actually halal chicken, so I'm actually a little surprised that they're this big. I bought some for my sister and she was freaking out on how big they were. They're monster breasts. So we coat it as much as we can. Make sure it is nice and covered and stuck in there. And I know this is a lot of work, but trust me, it's worth it in the end when you bite into this chicken, especially when you put some crystal hot sauce over it. Oh goodness, it's going to be amazing. So let that dust and just put it on your sheet. Give me 1 second. Our potatoes are going wild over here. Ouch. Be careful with the steam. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of these chicken breasts, and we'll be back when we're ready to fry them. We're going to get our garlic nice and toasted and crispy for our garlic mashed potatoes. So this is about 2 cloves of garlic, minced very well. I kind of got this little pan as a joke, but it's actually going to come in handy. So we're going to make sure your pan is hot. I'm going to throw in our butter, about a tablespoon or a little over a tablespoon of butter. And then as soon as that melts out, okay, that's pretty good. I'm going to throw in our garlic. Get all those little pieces. Now with this, you have to kind of keep moving it around and keeping your eye on it, because little pieces of garlic will burn instantly. So I'm going to put the medium to medium high, and I'm just going to keep moving until it gets toasted. So I'm going to toast this, and I'm going to show you guys when it's done. They're done. The way you know they're done, you stick a fork in them and they're super soft. So you see they're done, garlic's in there, water's in there. And one of the best ways to not have to use that much butter and that much cream is to actually leave about 10% of the water. So I'm going to drain most of the water, but not all of it. You see these potatoes are super soft that I can mash them up with the spoon. You see how there's still water in there? So we're going to start off by mashing them. And because potatoes have so much starch, they're going to get nice, and I'm going to turn this off, get really nice and creamy without even any butter. So I'm going to go ahead and do that really quick. I don't have a potato masher because, I don't know, I just don't. So use whatever you want. You can use a cup, you can use the spoon, but you should cook the potatoes down so soft that it's really easy with the spoon. So you see how the little bit of water already has incorporated itself into the potato. So now what we're going to start doing is incorporating all our yummy ingredients. So we're going to start with about, usually I don't leave the water in, I have to use a lot more than this amount of butter. We're looking at like 2 tablespoons. That's what we'll start with. We'll throw that in there, and I'm going to just break it up into little pieces. Like that. And then I'm going to put in about a teaspoon of mascarpone. You could use, if you don't have this, you could use cream cheese, you could use sour cream, but this, actually I'm going to put 2 of these. You can use cream cheese, sour cream. If you're vegan or vegetarian or lactose, you can use vegan butter or olive oil, as long as it's fat. And for the mascarpone, you could use cashew milk. And so we're going to mix those in there. You see they're already melting, making our beautiful potatoes super creamy and fluffy. So let that incorporate in there. And then I'm going to use not even a 1/3 cup of whipping cream, heavy cream. If you don't have heavy cream, milk is fine. About that much. Yeah, that's about a 1/3 of a cup. And then I'm going to throw in a little bit of salt, about a teaspoon worth, and then we'll taste if it needs more. Now, I like this cheesy taste to potatoes, and but I don't actually like putting cheese in the actual potatoes. So what I do is I have nutritional yeast, which is like vegans' super food to make anything cheesy or creamy. So I'm gonna put I'll start off with 1 tablespoon, and that'll give it like a little cheesy cheddar cheese flavor. And you can play around. I'm making garlic mashed potatoes, but you could add rosemary to this. You could add chives, green onions. You can do whatever you want. But the trick is to try to get them fluffy. You see how fluffy they look? And that's because I leave the water. And if you peel and cut them first, you don't have to deal with trying to cool them down to peel them and then cut them. It just becomes really easy. A little bit more work in the front, but it just, look at that. Look how creamy and fluffy that is. And lastly, I'm going, well, not lastly, because I still have a couple other ingredients, but this is the garlic. So I'm going to spread that around. I think I have a little bit more in this pan. Use that. That's how nice and crispy you want your garlic. Now, depending, so I'm serving this at home, so I will use black pepper. But if I was serving this for a service with the school or lunches, when we do our lunches at the school, I use white pepper. But like I said, this is my personal preference, and so I'm going to go ahead and use black pepper if I can find it. Oh, behind me. So this is to taste, so it's up to what you want. Salt, I tend to like food a little bit saltier than usual, than most people, so I add salt on my own, because you actually, when we're serving, we can't have food be too salty. That's why there's salt on the table. So yeah, so if you look how beautifully creamy and fluffy these potatoes are, and it was no work to mash them. So the key is to leave just a little bit of that water, and it'll start that creamy process for you. And you don't have to use as much butter or as much cream as you would if you would drain them completely. And yeah, so that's our nice garlic mashed potatoes. So now we're almost done. The last thing we have to do is our fried chicken. Usually I fry my chicken in a iron skillet, but because this is chicken breast, you don't have to really deep fry. So I'm using a non-stick pan so that I don't have to use too much oil, and I'm going to use avocado oil because it has a really high heat resistance. And then one of the things that I'm doing is I turned on my oven to the very lowest setting so that when I am finished with the chicken, I can just put it in there so I can stay nice and warm and crispy. And then the other thing, I know that people are used to frying foods and putting a napkin in a plate, and that's all great, but the reality is what you should be doing is getting a baking pan or a plate and some racks, some metal racks where you could actually put your fried foods so that it can drip properly all the excess oil, and it also keeps the integrity of the texture of the fried chicken intact. And so there's nothing worse than eating a fried food that is soggy. So if you are going to fry, please stay away from using the napkin and plate. Try to create a frying rack situation for yourself. So now the pan is hot. Always make sure that your pan is hot before you put your oils in. And so I'm going to put about half a cup of oil to fry our chicken breast. So I'm going to give that just about a few seconds to get warm. And so cross-contamination is really important to understand. So I'm going to be using a fork to put the chicken in, and then the tongs to take the cooked chicken out. Very important to ensure that you're not cross-contaminating, which is actually something that we all have to be really aware of right now, because I see many people going out to the stores shopping and using gloves, but then they touch their cell phone and then they put their cell phone to their face. Cross-contamination. So if you have gloves on and you touch everything and then you go in for your keys or your phone, you might as well not wear gloves. So same thing with food, cross-contamination. Chicken can get you sick. Raw chicken can get you really sick. So we put in the chicken with the fork. We remove it with clean tongs. That way nothing is getting crossed. So we're going to start with our, I'm going to lower the heat a little bit because I've been talking way too much. And I don't want it to burn. And we're thinking about 3 to 4 minutes per side. That is one of the most amazing sounds ever. And we're going to put about 3 pieces because you don't want to crowd your pan. And so you want about 3 minutes. Make sure that your pan is right in the center. 3 minutes on each side. And you'll start seeing when the chicken is cooked, you can start seeing that it starts getting lighter in color. And that's when it's time to turn it on. I tend to like my chicken a little on the crispier side, but if you don't, just go in a little bit lower temperature. And yeah, so we'll come back when our pieces are done and ready to put our plate together.